Okay, so good evening, everybody. Welcome to today's Pitzer at Home virtual event presented as part of the Pitzer College Alumni and Family Book Club. Pitzer at Home provides resources to educate, entertain, and support the college's alumni and family communities, bringing Pitzer into your home wherever you are. We want you to know that this event will be recorded and available on demand. My name is Jill Hawthorne, class of '87, and proud member of the Alumni and Family Engagement Team. Tonight's talk is inspired by The Beauty in Breaking, the New York Times bestselling memoir by ER Dr. Michele Harper, a reflection about the drama and adrenaline of the ER and the universal story about how healing happens. We have the complete pleasure of hearing from our own alumni, Doctors Martha Sosa-Johnson, class of '83, and Elaine Davenport, my classmate of '87, and parent of Pitzer student Annie Davenport, class of '23. I want to say how much we appreciate their time and enthusiasm for participating in this talk. It has been a delight to get to know Martha through this event and to reconnect with Elaine, who I knew as a thoughtful and action-oriented classmate and fellow alumna today. So let's get started by having both Martha and Elaine share a little bit about themselves and their journey into medicine. And I do want to note that we are saving some time for question and answers close to the end of the session. So why don't you go ahead and take it away, Elaine.
Hello. Welcome, everybody. So nice to be here. And I really excited to do this. I went to Pitzer, graduated in '87, and went to medical school back east, and then trained for pediatrics at UC Davis in Sacramento. And then I have been in the Oakland, Berkeley area for the past 25 years, practicing pediatrics. We had two children. I did marry my college sweetheart, Chase Davenport, if any of you know him. And we had two children. The first one decided to get out of California for college, but my second one, as Jill mentioned, is a rising junior at Pitzer. And boy, she fell in love with that school right away when she went to visit and applied early decision, and has just been absolutely thrilled with Pitzer, and we're thrilled that she's there. So that's my brief introduction, and I think it's Martha's turn.
You're on mute.
Rule number one, unmute so people can hear. Anyways, again, I'm also very excited to be here. And I want to thank Jill Hawthorne for the invitation to be here, and Elaine for willing to do this together. This is just an amazing opportunity. So again, I also graduated in '83. After that, I took a year off before I went off to medical school, and then I went to UC San Diego, where I did my medical school education. And then I decided to train in the field of internal medicine, which is basically taking care of adults from the ages of 18 to whenever. And for me, that person was Gus, who was my 100-year-old patient who invited me to his 100th birthday party. So that was a joy to be there. And after that, I worked several places until I finally made the decision to come back home. And home is Santa Ana, California, where I grew up. And an opportunity arose to work at UC Irvine. And my husband will tell you, if he was on here, that he got me the job. Because there was talk at the lunch table about the need for physicians, and he told me about it, and the rest is history. I ended up at UC Irvine in 1999, and I've been there for almost over 20 years. And because I work at a university, the field of medicine that I do is called academic medicine. And that basically means that in addition to seeing patients myself as an internal medicine physician, I also teach and train the next generation, which is part of the joy of being at an academic institution, because I get to teach the medical students, how to talk to people, where to put their hands on, et cetera, during exams. And then I get to teach the internal medicine residents. They're with me for 3 years. And it's been a very wonderful journey to be there. And as you heard, I did get married, and I also married my college sweetheart, Dana. And we've been married will be 26 years this October. We have one child, Christopher, who's 16 now. And anyways, I'm very excited to be here with you all this afternoon. And really quickly, I took a look at some of the pages. I see some of the faces. So welcome to everybody, but especially I saw Rhonda there. I saw Alicia, my best friend from college, and I saw my brother-in-law, Greg. So everyone welcome, a special welcome for them making the effort. Thank you.
Okay. So what we would like to talk about now, Elaine, I want to have you start us off by talking about how you chose medicine and the role Pitzer played in your journey.
Of course, happy to. So first thing I'd like to talk about, number one, I love the book. I really enjoyed reading it, and her reflections on her career and her life. So I wanted to start just talking about how Dr. Harper chose medicine, because I enjoyed her descriptions of it. She first talked about when she was in grade school that she had a visit from a guardian angel in her living room. And the guardian angel told her that her family was going to be safe, that they were all going to be okay and survive, and that she was going to have a life of service, and that she needed to do that with her life. And I think that was very inspiring for her, and she took it to heart 100% in her life of chaos. She really felt strongly about that and was able to use that to go forward and accomplish her goals. And then the part about why she chose the ER was also very interesting. She had to drive her older brother to the emergency room when she was 15 and just had gotten her driving permit. He had unfortunately been bitten by their father in a fight, and the wound was bad enough they had to go to the emergency room to get it fixed. And what she noticed in that emergency room was that there was chaos, there was a lot going on, but it felt like things could be taken care of. It felt like things could be wrapped up. And so I think that what she really liked about that was she could control that chaos, or control it, and be able to handle it. And so that's how I saw how she chose going into the emergency room. For myself, I actually decided on medicine probably when I was a senior, in high school. I don't think I was a senior. I was probably first or second year in high school, in biology class, actually. And what I noticed is when we were studying the human body, I could not get enough of it. I was absolutely fascinated with the human body and how it worked and what was going on. And I realized that there was no end to that knowledge, and that it would keep me busy the rest of my life and I would never be bored. So that really was the beginning of my sort of inspiration into medicine. I think there probably was some subconscious aspect about taking care of people as well and enjoying that. I am the middle child between two brothers and raised by a single mother. So I think there was some sort of caring aspect in that as well. And in terms of pediatrics, how could you not choose to work with kids? Martha can comment on that, of course, but to me, kids are the best. Most of them get better, and they're so real and they're so honest. So I really, really enjoy that and chose that pretty early on as well. So that's kind of my evolution. Martha wants to share hers, please.
Thank you, Elaine. So you're right. Some people can pinpoint exactly the moment that they said they would decided to do medicine. But similarly to Dr. Harper, it's one of those things that I always just felt I was meant to do. And it's sometimes my husband says, oh, come on, really? I go, no, it was just, I always felt, and Elaine probably has some of that motion too, that it was my mission in this life, that is what I was supposed to do. And along the way, I had many kindred spirits, but I think the first time that I realized that I could do it, which happened in high school, I was in a program called the Biomed program. And it was a program to introduce young students to the different fields in medicine. And in one of those trips that we took outside of the high school, we actually went to UC Irvine School of Medicine, and they took us around the school. And right before we left the tour, we went through the anatomy lab. And I'm sure all of us have this friend like I had in high school where you're really good buddies and you're always competing with each other about, who does better in this subject or who does better in that subject. And this person for me was Lee, and he was like a big brother. And as we were leaving the anatomy corridor, I remember he turned around, he looked at me and he said very clearly with a lot of confidence, I'm going to go to medical school. I'm going to come here. I'm going to be a doctor. You're going to go to nursing school. You're going to be a nurse. You're going to run my office. Ooh. Just like that. Just like that. And I knew, since we were friends, I knew it wasn't malicious, but he was being playful. But I thought in that second that he said that, it went through my mind like, wait. Lee is maybe better than me in social science, but I'm definitely better in math and I'm definitely better in science. So in that split second, what his comment gave me was a moment I'd like to call clarity. These moments of clarity that I'm sure all of us have had in our life. And that was one of my first ones where I said, wow, if my friend thinks he can do this, and I think I'm just as smart as he is, that means I can do it too. And I had never really thought about it that way, but I think for young women, especially as we're, beginning to make these decisions, it's important to find that source of confidence where you can do it if you choose to do it. So that was wonderful that actually happened. And I do remember that, being friends, I did turn around and punch him in the arm. And I said, no, I'm going to go to medical school. You're going to be my nurse. And that's just the way it's going to be. We're friends, so we laughed a lot about it. But it wasn't until my senior year in high school that an English teacher asked me where I was going to college. And it was the first time that was ever asked of me in a serious fashion. And I really did not know. I mean, I had parents for immigrants who really knew very little about the educational system. And I had never been seriously told how I could do college, but she took me under her wing. She showed me how to apply for scholarships. She said that I could apply to college. And as it turned out, I only thought of two colleges, one of them because my dear friend, my oldest friend was going to UC Davis, so I thought I'd go with her. My dad student nixed that idea. I said, no, you're not leaving this area. You're needed at home. So there's no way you're going away to college. I shared that with Mrs. Palmer and she said, well, you said you kind of had this interest in medicine and there's this school called Pitzer, why don't I arrange a trip for you? And so she did. And so somewhere in this, I think January or February or something, I was out, maybe it was in the fall, I can't remember exactly, but she arranged a trip. And so I went to see the school, the only trip I took to any college. And at the end of the tour at Aver Auditorium, they said, let's go, there's a conference there. And as I went through the doors, it said women in science and medicine. So that was it. That was my, okay, I guess I'm coming here and this is the place I'm coming and this is where I went. And it was wonderful. Pitzer was an amazing opportunity to meet so many wonderful new people, make some cherished friendships, great education. Dr. Stromberg couldn't be here today, but she was one of my amazing mentors during that time who nurtured this dream of my wanting to go to medical school. And it provided me an incredible education over at the Joint Science Center with Dr. Sadova and everybody else, and supported the dream. And so, Pitzer was another of that whole family of kindred spirits that we all have that allow us to go forward and fulfill our journey. So Pitzer was absolutely pivotal for that journey.
Yeah, I'd also love to comment on the Pitzer side as well, Martha. I think a very typical person who thinks when they enter college, they want to, they think that they want to be a doctor. Very typically, they think they have to major in a science. A lot of very, very typically it's biology. And I loved about Pitzer is when I got there, it really opened my eyes to everything and every subject. And I fell in love with history, American history specifically, because Dr. Jimenez was an amazing, amazing professor. And she led me through an incredible discovery of American history and their seminars, et cetera. And the fact that Pitzer didn't have requirements. So, you know, many schools, they have requirements. You have these requirements, you had your science requirements, and then you had your major requirements. Pitzer didn't have that. So I was able to major in history, yet get all my science requirements in as well. And that just made me feel so much more well-rounded and just really, really appreciative of Pitzer to be able to do that while at the same time, as Martha said, really support the science side of my education as well.
I'm glad you said that, Elaine, because now they have two examples of two non-science majors, right? History for you and psychology for me. So yes, other majors can get into medical school. It's not all the biology.
Exactly.
So, there you go.
So in the book, life happens when you go through medical training. So for the author, a lot happened. Her marriage ended. So I thought if you two could also share a little bit more about what it was like going through medical school for you and what you learned about life.
Okay, I think I'll start this one. So Elaine and I both agreed that this was an important theme to talk about because Dr. Harper just her life history or her life story just was so poignant, and it just showed that so many things happen to us while we're training, and we can't stop participating in life just because we're getting whatever graduate training we may be, whether it's medical, law, or anything else. And anyways, life isn't going to let you do that. It's just going to be there. And medical school, you're dating, some people get married, some people have kids, even in residency. I have one of my residents today, Sarah. She left today because she's going to get married next Saturday. And so she went home to Sacramento to be married. So all these events are happening, and she's my second year resident in internal medicine. So these are important events that will continue to happen. You know, unfortunately, other people become ill themselves during medical school, or family members become ill. And, personally for me, this is a part of my journey that not too many people know, except those that are very close to me. But during medical school, my mother was diagnosed with kidney cancer. And the financial circumstances of her life was that she had very little financial support, and at that point was going to be homeless. So that's not going to happen on my watch. So during my second year of medical school, she moved in with me. And she moved in with me during her recovery of her illness and during a very emotionally draining and, challenging time of her life. So that was hard. It was hard to bring someone into your life where you've been living it by yourself, but also the right thing to do. And I'm so grateful that she moved in with me while she recuperated, but it was hard financially. And it was hard because she didn't always understand why I was out so late, right? It's like, unless you go through the training, people really don't understand the hours and hours and hours that you spent learning, memorizing, implementing, and she happened to be there when I was doing anatomy lab. So I'd have to be up till 2, 3 in the morning. In our school, we had the honor and privilege of naming our cadavers. So Molly was our cadaver. So I'd be with Molly till 2, 3 in the morning, especially right before practicals. And I'd come home and she was in disbelief that I could possibly be out that late learning. It's just something she couldn't fathom herself. She had a second-grade education in Mexico, and that was the extent of her experience. So it was something very difficult. But these things do happen, and we need to be able to, continue to go forward with that. And I'm very grateful that we did, because for us as a mother and daughter, it gave us a year that was very challenging financially, but also very challenging emotionally. And we were able to repair a lot of our relationship of things that happen in dysfunctional families that I'm sure a lot of us come from, and I'm no different than anybody else. And I was a child of a divorce when I was very young, so having my mother live with me really allowed us some opportunity to repair some of that relationship, which is incredibly important for that time in my life. And the other thing that happened, Dana isn't online, but he'll tell you that he asked me to marry him. And that was my first year of medical school. And he'll tell you that I said no. And it was because it was very stressful. And the idea of getting married and trying to get through medical school was just too much. And I just really couldn't do that. So, I had to say no. But we got through that period with flexibility and with patience. And when he then went off to medical school, when I finished medical school, I went off to my internship. And that's when he went off to medical school. And then I had to wait because until he was ready to ask again. So in his fourth year of medical school, he asked me to marry him again. And this time, of course, I said yes. And here we are almost 26 years later in marriage. So, I'm glad that Dr. Harper had the courage to share that information with us so that other individuals can see that we all go through very challenging times while we're training. And a lot of the process of that challenging time is healing through any emotional distress that you go through, but we can get through it. And I think that's very important to understand. Certainly.
Thank you for sharing all that. My sort of comments about this would be, I definitely have a lot of people say, how long is the training? Oh my gosh, how long is it? 8 years, 10 years? Oh my gosh, that's so long. And, as Martha said, that life happens. And, it isn't as though we go into a black hole and get popped out 8 years later. And here we are. Now we get to start living life. So I really like to put a very positive spin on it in terms of all the things that can happen in medical school and in residency, and just the joy of those things that can happen. I did have to maintain a long distance relationship 3 out of 4 of the years of my medical school training. And then at the end of, then I traveled all the way back across. So that was back east in Philadelphia, traveled back to Sacramento. At the end of my intern year, I got married. And my father passed away my second year in residency. I took 1 day off for that. I took a week off for my wedding. So things are shortened. I will say that there are other commitments, but you can have joyous things. You can experience life. I had my first child as a chief resident, and I will say, just generally, please don't be discouraged by the time. I wholly welcome the time. The time that you spend in training, you learn so much and you meet so many colleagues. So this is if I'm speaking to any students who are out there listening to this and wondering about it, or parents of students who are interested in medicine, that the time will be fine. Absolutely, 100%. And yes, it's delayed time to start to earn money and really get your career going, et cetera. And some people worry about that. And, yes, I'm still paying off my medical school loans. I did earn an income during my residency that wasn't a lot, but I earned it, and I wouldn't change anything. So I encourage people to really pursue medicine if that's what your dream is.
Great. I want to just share a quote from the author about the importance of self-care. True caring, indeed, true living comes from being able to hold peace and love for oneself, and from sharing that unwavering, unconditional love, knowing that all life depends on this. So just want to ask you more, if you can talk about how you learned to care for your health and wellness as a doctor. Elaine, why don't you give it a start?
Yes. Yeah, I love that Dr. Harper shared that, and her healing, and how she got herself better, put herself back together in a way. She really used yoga as a way to heal herself. I love that she made those really healthy meals with lentils.
Yeah.
And that she had the incense burning and all that. That was just beautiful and so important. I think that my self-care probably all along has one of the things has been exercise and sports. I've always been interested in it, and I was able to at Pitzer, I played soccer and played on the ultimate frisbee team, and then was lucky enough to get together an ultimate frisbee team in medical school. I've always rode my bike often, and that's been a huge part of how I can recover. I do think that as being a physician and seeing patients every day can be exhausting. And it isn't that it's necessarily physically exhausting, it can be emotionally exhausting. So I do think self-care is so important, and to find something that can replenish you. And I found that exercise takes away the stress and gives me back some energy. The other thing that I did for self-care was I tried really very hard not to take work home. So I might have stayed an extra half an hour, 45 minutes at the office or at work to finish up notes. And if I didn't finish them, then I'd finish them the next day so I could come home and focus on my kids and get dinner and put them to bed, etc. Now, I do remember falling asleep in my clothes after I put my kids to bed.
Yeah.
Or in their bed with my clothes on. But the good thing was that work was at work and home was at home. And that was really important for me and really helped me separate and replenish myself. And then I would just say, last but not least, my self-care that I've maintained my whole life is just reading books. I read every night before I go to sleep. I read anytime I have an extra moment or two on a weekend or something. I don't read medical journals in those instances. I read novels. I read history. And it's one of my favorite things to do. So your turn, Martha.
Thank you, Elaine. I wish I could say that exercise has been a consistency with me, but I have ebbed, up and down, but I do enjoy playing tennis at one point. And, I do walk with my dogs now 8 to 10 miles a week. So they like going out for their 2-mile walks. We do that about 4 times a week. But I think a lot of my focus is I learned to set limits, like you said, at work, because otherwise we'll be there a long time. And I think having my child helped me set limits, because up until then I could be there till all hours of the night. And I remember the one day that a person came in with a blood pressure of 200/110, and Elaine will know that that's a critical value. And but I call it BC, before Christopher. So before Christopher, because I knew how to take care of this problem, I would have stayed and taken care of them. But it was 3:30, 4 o'clock. And I knew that if I had done that, I'd be there till 7 or 8 to make sure that they're safely able to go home. But I had to go pick up my son at 5:30. And that was the first time that I realized I can't take care of this patient anymore. I can't take care of him because I got someone else that I'm responsible for. But it was hard, one of the hardest days that I had as a physician, to send the patient to the emergency room, which was appropriate as well. But when I worked at a fairly qualified health center where I knew that sending that person to the emergency room was going to be very costly when I could have handled it myself in clinic. So it was a tough decision, but these things had to change for me, setting limits at work. And then I learned from a friend who I always said, gosh, you always seem to be gone the day before a holiday. And he goes, yeah, don't you do that? He goes, every single holiday I take the day before or I take the day after. So I'm always getting 4 days. And I said, really? And at first I thought I'd be angry, but I said, no, I'm going to take a page from your book, right? So from that point on, every time there's a 3-day holiday, I get an extra day in there, because that's important for us to find time to be at home for ourselves, for our family, etc. And one tradition that Dana and I have had throughout our marriage is that we never work on each other's birthday. We always take it off. We always take off our anniversary. And until our son was about, I think in second grade was the last time we pulled him out. But until that point, we always took off his birthday. And we went out and we did things together as a family. So we really put a lot of focus on family time and making sure that we gave time to those important days in our own family, as of course spending time with other family members on birthdays or anniversaries or, you know, holidays, which are very, very important. You know, it's important to spend time with friends and hang out, especially to catch up and make new memories. You know, that's important. You need that group of friends that know you and you can open up with and be honest with. And so I think spending time with girlfriends, I have a really dear knit, you know, set of friends that we do that together. And you just have to spend time with them. So, you know, exercising, spending time with family, setting limits, making sure you take that time off from work, because work is never going to tell you take off, Martha. You know, once you get a couple days out, couple more extra days, they're never going to do that. So I've learned to be a planner. So when that schedule comes out, July 15th or 30th, and I know the entire year when I'm going to be on call, when I'm not going to be on call, and boom, all my dates go in for holidays and vacation and all those important things that need to be in, because you've got to take time away from the job. You just have to. And it's funny because with some of my patients, they seem to notice that there's a cycle of about every 3 to 4 months. If there were those 3 to 4 months patients coming in, he goes, "You always seem to be on vacation, Dr. Sosa-Johnson, when it's my time to come see you." And I always have to do it like a week later. And that's because I learned that for me, that was the time that I needed, that about 3 months or so, I would start getting tired, you know, because what we do, what Elaine and I do, and all those who take care of others, whatever profession you are, that's a huge responsibility. And we carry that fairly well. But when we're tired and we're not taking care of ourselves, we don't. And I always give the example to my medical students and my residents, or, you know, about my stethoscope. And as a third-year medical student, the first time I had to wear that stethoscope around my neck, it was so heavy. I thought it was going to drop me. And to me, it symbolized all that responsibility that I was carrying. And then, you know, over time, you get training, you get better and you get better and you get better. And then one day I remember walking into the bank and doing something, you know, at the bank, and they're saying, "Oh, doctor, how are you doing?" I go, "Doctor? How do you know I'm a doctor?" You know, I go, "It's the stethoscope around your neck." You know, I go, "Oh, that," you know, I didn't feel it, because at a certain point, our training allows that. To me, it's very symbolic. When I don't feel my stethoscope, I'm great. I'm doing well. I feel good. I feel rested. I have energy. And when I start feeling my stethoscope, for me, it's a time to, you know, wake up. So you need to do something for yourself. So all those things are very important. And I'm so glad that Dr. Harper mentioned them, you know, because we don't always mention that as physicians, how we need that time away. And she did such a good job. Her favorite teas, her favorite coffee, her favorite yoga place. These are all great habits that we should, if we don't already, please consider incorporating into our daily practice, because it's important. It keeps us, I think, balanced and able to give our best. Because I'm sure Elaine feels exactly the same way. I've always feel that I give you 110% when you're in my office. That's what I give you. And the day I'm only giving you 100%, you're being shortchanged. There's something wrong. So I need to make sure that I always strive to give you that 110%. That's all about what wellness is and how we balance it in our life.
Well, those are excellent things that both of you have mentioned as far as keeping a balance in life. It really is so important. I appreciate that. We actually at this time can open up the chat box if we want for some questions. And then I wanted to pull, actually, as we start, we have some questions from the registration. And I'll go ahead and just read one of them if you don't mind. If folks do want to add some questions, please feel free. But this one is, how did your networks of support with female physicians help you as you navigated through providing care during the pandemic?
Elaine?
Let's see. I would definitely say my network of female physicians helped me my entire career. That was my first thought before they mentioned the pandemic. So I do have to comment on that a little bit, just because, you know, you're in it together and you have the exact same situations together when you're raising your child and you forgot to bring the cupcakes to preschool and you have to, you know, run off and get that and bring that to preschool, et cetera. So they can all relate, and they were definitely the best sounding boards. I would say in terms of COVID, in my profession, the majority of my colleagues probably are female. And so we definitely did have issues with moms wanting to stay home and help their kids in virtual school.
Mhm.
And I definitely offered to come into the office so that the mom who has a school age child, my kids are older, a school age child could be home with mom. Now, mom, of course, is maybe on her computer talking to her patients, but at least she could be home and helping her kids. So it was rough. It was definitely rough. And you know, I tried the best to support them. I think that really the hardest was the moms of school age kids, and the dads, of course, 100%.
Really quickly, our clinic is all female. We all have female internists, which is pretty unique. So during the pandemic, we kind of made the same choice, that those that had school age kids, we said, give them all the remote sessions as much as they want. And those of us, like my kid was he's 15 at the time. And so I asked for 1 day a week so that at least I could be home on Fridays with him. Maybe I should have asked for more, because it was tough even for teenagers, let me tell you. But anyway, so that's kind of how we did it too. And it's nice because, you know, we're all moms, and so we all get it. And we all understand that we have to cover for each other when one of us is sick or one of us can't be there. And we do that very collegially. So it's a very good working environment to be with other individuals who understand that we all have similar needs, and we do our best to help each other out.
In the pandemic, has it been where you've done video work with your patients as well as in person?
Yes.
Yes.
Initially, right when it started, you know, everything I work for Kaiser in Oakland, and, you know, everything shut down. And we were already set up to do video visits through Kaiser, but our system but we hadn't done very many at all. And so it was a big switch over to video and phone visits. And for a couple months, that's all it was video and phone visits. And then we gradually had to get we always saw babies. We always saw newborns. They absolutely kept coming. But then we had to get immunizations started. And so we didn't have much of a shutdown, I would say, because we had to take care of patients and, you know, get those shots going. But I do think medicine, as you all have probably seen as patients, that it is trending. It still is really trending toward video and phone, and we will sort of see what pans out. I think that there's pros and cons to both of them, and I think that we can, if you have a system that can coordinate both of them, that's really the answer. You know, an initial video visit to do an assessment and then bring them on in. You know, nothing beats laying hands. I still think that, and I'm sure Martha agrees.
I pretty much agree with Elaine, so I'll leave that answer as is.
Well, and in the story, Dr. Harper, you know, talks about a lot of her patients. And so I wondered if either of you have a patient story that has stayed with you over time, just as the author.
Do you want me to take this one, Elaine?
You can go ahead.
Okay. I think that we can both tell you that there's probably many patients that we learn something about, and that really affects us. Sometimes it's just the suffering of our patients, the depth of their suffering. And without going into too much detail, I had a patient in the recent weeks that shared, she's been my patient for almost 10 years, but for some reason in her life now, she's dealing with childhood trauma of parents being ill, having to take responsibility from a very young age of 12, having to start working at 13 to help support the family, being the financial person for that family, and then later having, unfortunately, to be the survivor of abuse. And I remember asking, do you have any idea why this is coming up now? And repressed feelings and emotions that might have been there for a long time. And that just brought to my attention again that sometimes you know your patients, they've been your patients, you've been taking care of all these medical problems, and then all of a sudden something will come up. Very deep, very painful, very emotional, that they're hurting and you want to do more. And you want to get them to the appropriate person, to help them struggle with these issues that are now coming up when they're 45, and yet these things happen with their teenagers. So I think our patients are always surprising us with what they're bringing to the table. And I remember sharing with Jill and Elaine about another patient really quickly that taught me that sometimes when my patient is being difficult and challenging, we'll leave it like that, I have to really learn to take a step back and try to find out the reason why this particular patient, I'd call 911 on because they were having short of breath and they were having chest pain. And I thought, oh, good, I did I did my job well, and I'm getting into the right place because now the emergency room physicians can help her and take care of her, which is where she needed to be. And I get a knock on my door, and my nurse is saying she's not leaving. She says she's not going with those paramedics, and she needs to talk to you. And I was shocked because she was symptomatic and she was having difficulty breathing. But I went back in the room and she was very angry with me. And she said, "You're not hearing me. I am not going to that emergency room." And I cannot understand why. And finally, after I had to take a step back, I had to think about it. And I had to say, okay, what is the challenge with you going? And I had to figure out a way to say it and she finally shared that it was financial, that I did not know, or I didn't understand, or I was not caring enough to know that if I sent her to the emergency room and she was not admitted, she would go home with a bill from her insurance plan. And it's something she could not afford because she lived on a limited budget. Now, after her, I asked a lot of patients about financial stress because she taught me that sometimes the no is a reason I didn't even expect. And in this case was financial. So she said, you have to figure it out, because if you want me to go, you have to make it so that I don't have to pay that thing, the deductible, if I send home. And the cardiologist always knows how to do it. So you should figure it out too. Well, I called the cardiologist, hey, Alan, what's going on here? And he was kind and told me exactly what needed to be done. I learned something new. And that's kind of what I tell my patients when I have to stretch myself, whether it's an administrative reason or whether it's a medication reason or something where I have to stretch my knowledge to be able to help you. I look at the patient and say, hey, thanks a lot. You just taught me something new today. And now that is going to be incorporated into the way I take care of patients. And I say, thank you for helping me learn something new. And with that particular patient, she wasn't able to hear that from me right now. She was still angry. We got her to the emergency room. She went to the right department where they were not going to charge her. She got taken care of. The cardiologist said, I'm sending my fellow, which is the doctor in training for cardiology, to see her, Martha. We'll take care of her from here. And so you learn things. And so sometimes I try to tell my residents and to be patient. And if something is looking really tough, to kind of step back and figure out what it is you can learn. What's going on that you still don't have a clue about. And if you're patient and ask enough questions, that people will tell you, I'm one of the nosiest people in town. Nosiest people. Don't come near me because I will ask and ask and ask and ask until I figure things out. And so I think that our patients have a lot to teach us when we just take that moment to slow down and kind of really, really listen. And that's those two stories I'd like to share with you.
Elaine, I see another question here. I'm not sure if do you want to share a patient story or my next question?
No, go ahead.
Oh, sure.
That's
Okay. Well, one is about how do you, just want to check it again. what did you do to grow in your resiliency? And I also thought just once more, if there's any other thoughts you want to share with students interested in going into medicine or trying to decide, or, those two things, I think they're really great points.
Boy. Resiliency. Boy. I guess I would say I never felt like this wasn't what I was going to do. And so if I, was knocked down or something, I guess I just felt like this is what I was going to do. And I kept trying. So in terms of resiliency, I guess I feel like that I wanted it so much that it kept me going. And the other thing that I did was I made sure that I had good relationships with colleagues. And so I could reach out to them, and I made sure I established those relationships from early on, as early as med school, all the way through, that they were there. I knew they were there to support me, and I was there to support them, and go out to drinks after work and talk through things. And that really, really helps to kind of shine light on things and realize that you're all in it together, and realize that you can get through this if you know that you're not the only one who, may be suffering or really having a hard time, that other people are as well, and they want you to keep going, and they really are there to encourage you.
I think I'll address my comments to those wanting to go to medical school. Really try to get out there and explore it, and really decide if it's going to be something that you're still interested in. And that means volunteering, whether that's volunteering at a homeless shelter where there's a medical clinic, or finding a physician that you can shadow with. I always give the advice to go to the American Association of Medical Colleges. They have actually a website for pre-med students where they do a lot of outreach. They have a lot of conferences. They have a lot of mentorship programs. So I say go there and see what you can do in terms of finding resources that way. During the time that I was the Assistant Dean of Diversity and Inclusion at the School of Medicine, I did a lot of outreach with high school students and pre-med students, and there's a lot of conferences that pre-med students put together. And so I would try to find those kinds of conferences where you can attend, because in those conferences, they'll do things like mock interviews. They'll have different speakers telling you about the MCAT or the personal statement, or et cetera. And so those conferences are out there. So really looking for those conferences to attend, that's another thing. And if you're going to get a job at some point, because some students do get a job, I say be a scribe. Go be a medical scribe. And so a medical scribe, you get paid for it, and you'll be working with physicians side by side. So the scribe is going to be now, I wish I had a scribe. The scribe is the person who's putting all the information into the computer. So you get to talk to the patient, and they're inputting all the information in the computer. They're doing your note. Oh, that would be nice. And then at the end, you review the note, make sure it's accurate, and you sign it. But a medical scribe is with that physician. One of the most popular places is the emergency room. And so you're with an emergency room physician for like 8 hours. Wow. Imagine all the wonderful experience you're going to get by being with a physician for 8 hours as you're scribing the vocabulary you're learning, what you're seeing with people coming in with, trauma, heart attack, strokes, et cetera, abdominal pain, whatever, but you're seeing that firsthand. And that's an amazing opportunity. So I do tell students those, to keep looking, and of course to find mentors that continue to show you other opportunities that are there, but really explore the medical field as much as you can, because when you interview, someone's going to be asking you, so why do you want to be a physician, and did you do any volunteering? What have those experiences been like? I guarantee you someone's going to ask you. Better explore it. So it's better to come up with a good answer.
And to add to that, Martha, I would say your advice was so incredible and practical. I cannot add to that practical advice. It's amazing. I would say you have to really want it. So please
Absolutely.
don't go to medical school or apply to medical school if it's what your parents want. Please don't do that. Don't follow a path because your father or your mother is a doctor. You have to want to do it, because that will keep you going, 100%.
Great. So we have two more questions. I'm hoping we might be able to touch on both. The cost in recruiting others into the field. How do you explain the cost of the education versus long journey of student loan payment? And then after that, if you could list one non-medical healing skill that you have learned through experience, what would you suggest for patient care? So those are both in the chat box.
I'm happy to start with that, if that's
Go
okay,
ahead.
Martha.
Yeah, of course. Go ahead.
Cost, yes, that's interesting. I was on financial aid at Pitzer and complete financial aid in medical school, big loans. I'm still paying them, as I mentioned. So, I can't say it's a breeze, but I will say that the trend is away from charging for medical schools. NYU has free tuition right now for medical school, and the Kaiser Medical School that just opened in Pasadena is also free. So I think it's getting there. I think it's going to go there. I think that we have to do this. We can't expect to only have rich people go to medical school or have somebody have an incredible debt. So I do hope that this trend is going to continue. And of course, if you're applying, pick those ones first, 100%, no matter what. In terms of, having to pay something off for 25 or 30 years, it hasn't affected me that much, in the sense of, I've had a fantastic life and have not lived richly, but have really, really enjoyed my life. So I don't regret it. And then I think, just to comment on the other one before I let Martha speak, in terms of experience, gosh, I have had so many things that I have learned from patients. Two things come to mind. One is not prejudging. I think that it is so easy, especially as you go on and get older in life. You've had this many experiences and you categorize those experiences. And so if this looks like this, then this is what this person's like. And I would be so wrong if I did that every time. So I really, really try not to prejudge somebody who I have just met in front of me, and I try to listen and let them tell me who they are, and not let me decide who they are when I meet them. And then the second one is kind of obvious, that every doctor is going to say, but it's, listening, listening, watching body language, etc. That's really where we get our answers. Also in pediatrics, watching a child, rather than saying, does your toe hurt? They'll be like, yeah, my toe hurts. When actually, are they walking okay? Yeah, they're walking fine. So really, observation has helped me a lot as well.
Thanks, Elaine. I think I'm going to ask you to read that last question again. I'm not sure if I understood it correctly. But what non-medical?
Yeah, if you could list one non-medical healing skill you have learned through experience, what would it be?
Non-medical
for patient care
healing skill. I think I'm going to, not that I know how to do it myself, but I definitely support holistic approaches to the practice of medicine. I find that a lot of my patients are looking for something else as well. And because I have experienced I actually have an Ayurvedic medicine practitioner that I go to for healing and care. I have an acupuncturist that I go to for physical ailments such as IT band syndrome. And I believe strongly in the power of meditation as a part of healing. So that I incorporate often in my discussions with patients to let them know that there's other options. And for example, today even, one of my patients was really trying to stop smoking, was down to her few, I don't think 4 or 5 cigarettes a day or something like that, but down for 20 is pretty good. So she only wants to, and I said, hey, have you tried acupuncture? You know, some people have said that acupuncture will help you with, you know, smoking. She goes, oh, and she herself said, well, gosh, I grew up with, you know, she herself is Korean. So she's like, I grew up with a lot of this. I hadn't even thought that I would go, but yes. So we talked about acupuncture, and we talked about strategies for reducing anxiety and stress in our everyday life. And I gave her one example of how I do it. And so I'm open to having those conversations with my patients. And when I sense, as Elaine was saying, a lot of it's observation. When I sense or can see that someone is open to those conversations, or if they bring them up themselves, very much they'll find a very receptive person with me in terms of other approaches, because I believe that we need to be open to other modalities that are very helpful. And we need to acknowledge how helpful they are and incorporate them into what we offer our patients, or at least let them know that we know about it. That we know that turmeric is anti-inflammatory. Why aren't you taking a daily capsule every day? You know, those kinds of silly things, but they're important. And I think that's what I think those are the non-medical or non-clinical things that I like to incorporate, because it's important for patients.
Wow, Martha, I think you should be my doctor.
We can talk meditation. And you know, sometimes you meditate with the patient in the room. You do. You show them deep breathing, and
That's wonderful.
you know, we that's why I'm always the one being sent to the principal's office, right? Because I take too long with patients. Well, you know what? That's okay.
Well, thank you so much. We are at the end of our session, but I can't believe how inspiring this feels. This session has been, and the things that we can take away, even those of us who aren't doctors, you know, so much of your advice has been just really wonderful. So thank you both, Elaine and Martha. It's really been a pleasure. And thank you to the audience. We hope to, if you want to join the Pitzer Alumni and Family Book Club, you'll consider doing so. This is our first year with the book club, and so we welcome your input about books or authors or speakers to consider, because we do like to bring the book club to the Pitzer connection like you see today. We have the Pitzer Book Club link in the chat. A recording of this event will be available on our Pitzer at Home website in a matter of days. And also just please feel free to reach out to us at engagement@pitzer.com if you have any questions or follow-up. And I think that that's all we have time for. So again, thank you so much. It was such a pleasure to hear from you and to talk about the book. So take care, everybody, and have a wonderful night.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you for the
everybody.
opportunity. It was wonderful.
Thank you, Jill.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much.
Hi, Cindy. Bye, Cindy. Hi, Rhonda. I was hoping you'd say hello as we're taking off.
Yes. It was great to see you both. I saw that Dana did go on. Come on.
Yeah, he's working. He's still working.
Okay, I see. Yeah, both of you guys, awesome job, and you sound like wonderful doctors, considering all that you shared, which was so important. So glad to see you.
Thank you.
Thank
Nice
you.
to see you. Thank you for coming.
Goodbye, everybody. Thank you.
All right. Good night.